Hello, my name is Irina and I'm certified open yoga teacher. I welcome you all to the site yogaopenyoga.com. If you have not registered there, then it's a very good moment to do that. And this site is devoted for all those people who are willing to learn yoga from very basics and very deeply. And if you have succeeded to this course that is going to be devoted to the fundamental principles of yoga, then my congratulations to you. And we are going on with more interesting material, and we're keeping on exploring what is on our schedule. Thereby, today the topic is the first principle of yoga, the very basic, the most fundamental principle of yoga. Sometimes we hear the expression ahimsa principle, or the principle of kindness, or the principle of supreme logic in everyday life. What does it mean? At first, in order to understand the meaning, we need to know the principle. In a way, we need to hear it, and we need to kind of understand it. And it sounds like that. You should make every effort to do no harm to any living being unless there is absolute necessity to do so. And if it's impossible to do no harm, you should follow your duty. So there are specifically two parts of this principle. A lot of teachings that I have encountered too stick only to the very first part of the first part. And it sounds like doing no harm. It is a very good intention, but as we will see further, there are a lot of difficulties in the life of a usual person to follow this principle entirely, thereby kind of losing its meaning and the essence. Thereby, I really suggest you to learn this principle by heart if you are finding that yoga is interesting for you, and if you want to kind of feel it more with your intuition and of course working with your mind, then it is very important for you to learn it by heart. And as I mentioned, it is very difficult or impossible for a normal person to follow this principle by 100%. Even when we're doing, let's say, nothing, or we are eating very little of food, or we are deciding to leave the society and stay in a cave, we are still hurting some living beings, even very small ones, but still not hurting anyone is very difficult. And we are also a living being, thereby probably leaving the society, leaving things that we like, would also bring some harm, and thereby, as yoga is very realistic and logical teaching, there is the second part that is also as important as the first one, explaining that if it's impossible, and it is impossible at this very moment, then we should minimize the harm and follow our duty. Or there is a Sanskrit word called dharma that we are going to explore in this course later on. So, we come to the notion that it is pretty difficult to follow the idea that not of non-harm at all, because there are a lot of conditions, and we live in the plane of our everyday life when each our action that we might see as a positive brings somebody something bad, even though for somebody else it's doing something good. So there are always a lot of things to think about. So we are realistic, yoga is realistic, and we do the maximum, but we understand the reality. And also when it comes to the profession, or a lot of meaning in a Sanskrit for the word dharma is also the profession, or the things that people do for living, also may involve some causing of harm. But would doctor refuse to do a little bit of pain to the patient in order to help for the patient to become healthy? Then thereby there is this small notion that is very important, that we should follow our dharma. and each of one needs to find the path of dharma, but we are going to talk about this a little bit later. So there is the ahimsa principle, and there are two essential parts of this principle, and they are equally important. Then let's talk about the kindness. Doing no harm is something that is very kind, very good. But can we define or understand what does it mean, kindness? Are we really aware always what does it mean to be a kind person? As there are no logical explanation for this concept, we can try to approach it, but it may be difficult. Then this is something that is above the logic. It's not illogical, even though sometimes it seems to be useful to be not kind and to do some bad stuff, kind of trying to get on somebody's head. But it's a good experiment. We are going to talk in next class about what does it mean to be good, and can we try to be good? Thereby, and how we understand our kindness, or that we are being good or kind in perspective to somebody else who is not behaving in our favor. So it's not illogical, but it's difficult to explain it with the logic. All we need is to develop intuition, and it helps us to understand the necessity of kindness. What about the kindness and intellect? Does it kind of rhyme? Is the intellectual, highly intellectual person also kind, or the person that is kind also intellectual? It's good if it's on the same level, but sometimes the person who is not that well in kindness finds it difficult, even though very good level of the intellect, find it's good, difficult to bring the level of kindness up, while the person who is kind and not that strong in an intellect is very, very fastly increasing and rising in the level of the intellect. That is also a good thing to think about on this matter. So you could kind of try to find the people you know that you find as kind and nice, and think about the intellect level, how it impacts and how it leaves the impact on this. So there's a lot of more to do exploring the first principle, but get the very first kind of notion of it is good. And we should learn making good out of bad, and we should kind of understand this notion of good and bad. But we have the whole course and the whole teaching of yoga. Thereby, read once more the text of the lecture that is on the site yogaopenyoga.com. If you have any problems, contact us. If it's helpful, thumbs up for the videos. And test is waiting for you already. See you on the next class.